Okay, let's talk about the war on drugs. Considering all the money, time, effort, and resources this country spends enforcing our drug policies, why do you think we keep fighting the war on drugs despite the obvious failures?
Very difficult to understand. I think it's got a racist touch to it because what we do is we're able to incarcerate a sizable portion of the underclass, which could be causing problems in the economic area. And that's the only thing I can think of as a logical reason. Otherwise, it is just stupider than stupid. We know that the Prohibition was a total social failure in the 20s. It brought about a disrespect for the law. It created a mafia and criminality. And people drank more in speakeasies than they ever did before the Prohibition. Now, we saw, once we put that aside, that things came back to normal. And alcohol is still a problem, but we regulate it, we tax it, and we can live with this problem. Now, the same thing with the war on drugs. If we can put aside the war, it's the war that ravages the inner cities, not the addiction. Addiction is a public health problem. And there is no addiction with respect to marijuana. Marijuana is not a gateway drug. Marijuana is not addictive. In fact, the opposite. It has some healing qualities. And so I would totally deregulate marijuana, permit it to be purchased at liquor stores, and then turn around and take hard drugs and permit them to be issued by a doctor, by prescription, and filled in drugstores. This way, you remove the entire criminal element from the process, you stop the profit from the process, and now you can begin to deal with the addiction problem straight away. And you save unbelievable sums of money that can help deal with the addiction problem. And of course, when I'm talking about saving money, I'm talking somewhere between $50 to $100 billion a year that we've been spending for the last 25 years. This is ever since Richard Nixon declared the war on drugs in his first term. This has got to end. This level of stupidity cannot continue. We can't afford it, first off. And what we've done is we've filled our prisons, and that's causing another problem that has to be dealt with.
With all the violence and poverty we've seen in our inner cities, and considering the number of minorities incarcerated because of drug offenses, do you think civil rights leaders like Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson are avoiding the issue by not pushing for the legalization of drugs?
Yes, I do. And I've been on Al Sharpton's radio program, and he was in the audience when I raised this issue, and he has not responded. And I think that not only Al Sharpton, but he's not running for president. I fault Barack Obama. He's a black man, and he should have some natural tendencies to empathize with the black people in the inner city, and he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. And the most important thing that we could do for the inner cities is to end the war on drug, which is savaging the inner cities, and most particularly the black and Hispanic communities.
Have you been embraced by any other civil rights activists because of your commitment towards ending the drug prohibition?
I haven't been embraced by anyone. The only one that's taken an interest is Harry Belafonte.
Okay. If it's so harmless, why is marijuana still legal, and why does it seem like so many politicians and law enforcement officials seem so determined to keep it that way?
I don't know. I just don't know. They've all tried it. They all tried it, and they all know that it's not addictive, because if it were addictive, they'd still be on it. I just don't know. There are certain mysteries of human nature that are difficult to divine. Why we continue to mutilate ourselves with stupid policies is difficult to understand. I come to this conclusion: it's our leadership. It's not the people. It's the leaders that lead us astray, and that's the reason why I want to empower the American people to be able to make laws, because that's the central power of government. Not voting. On election day, you give your power away. I want you to have your power 365 days a year, and so that you can vote on all the issues that affect your lives.
Okay, let's talk about Iraq. Why do you think we went to war with Iraq?
That's an easy one. General Sanchez told us that a month ago. We went there for the oil. I was saying that in the spring of 2002 that we were doing this for oil. Barack Obama, in the fall of 2002, after the vote in the Congress, said, well, we shouldn't go to war. Well, he didn't tell us why we were going to war. He didn't tell us any particulars. It just intuitively, he took that position. Well, he was right. But we went to war for oil, and the reason why we're staying there, and he's party to our staying there, and that is that we're staying there to keep control of that oil, because we're getting about 2 million barrels a day out of Iraq ever since the beginning of the war.
Do you think the Democrats in general are relying on the occupation to help deliver them a victory next year? With all the tough talk from the Republican candidates and with our war-weary nation, it seems like it might work.
Well, it might not. What the Democrats they've gained control of the Congress on the basis that they would end the war, and that they're not ending the war is going to have a reflection on them. The only thing that's operating in their benefit is that the Republicans are worse on the issue than they are. But what you see, if there was an alternative to both the Democrats and Republicans, then that alternative might win. 67% of the American people are fed up with both parties. Both parties are war parties, and the American people are not war people.
If Bush won't sign any legislation for withdrawal, why doesn't Congress just play hardball and not send him any money at all for this war?
Well, they don't have the guts to do it. And they could force him. You could force Bush to end the war. All you'd have to do is override a veto. And you could override a veto by overwhelmingly having vote after vote, day after day after day to override. And you would see eventually the votes turn in favor of overriding the veto. I think it might take 30 days, but that would permit the American people to weigh in and pressure those who continue to vote for the war by voting to not override the veto. And this is a plan that would work. I put this before the Congress last May. They've not raised a finger to do it. The Congress just does not want to exercise this kind of leadership, or for that matter, any substantial kind of leadership.
Let's talk about impeachment. It seems like there's a million reasons why we should impeach Bush and Cheney. So why isn't this happening?
Well, here again, it's because the spinelessness and the lack of leadership in the Congress. Even if they weren't able to pass a bill of impeachment, that they should begin the process and have the hearings and develop the record. But I think talking about impeachment is very important, because these people should be impeached. But it's more important than that. These people should be more than impeached. They should be prosecuted criminally. If an FBI agent came to your house and asked you questions and you lied, you'd be committing a felony. What is it when the President of the United States lies to the American people, or the Vice President? Is that more than a felony, particularly when thousands of people die as a result of it? That is criminality in the highest form, and it should be prosecuted. If I become President of the United States, I can guarantee you that is the approach I will take, and we will have justice. You can count on that.